Looking into the optimizer, what the optimizer does is it optimizes a SQL code statement. In other words, what it does, it takes the SQL code, it breaks it down, it decides which is the fastest way to execute that SQL statement based on either rule-based or cost-based optimization. Most commonly in the most recent versions of Oracle, it uses cost-based optimization, which is based on statistics. If statistics are out of date or non-existent, it can actually use things like dynamic sampling, which takes a piece of a table and assesses what the table should look like based on that small percentage and effectively disregards statistics. Obviously, if your tables are not consistent, in other words, the rows across the table are not completely consistent, you could get a picture which is not quite right. And as we've seen so far in this course, there are many different things affecting the way the optimizer behaves. As an introduction to the optimizer and how it functions and what it does, the first thing we need to look at is what I like to call the SQL code execution process. What are the steps that occur in an Oracle database when a chunk of SQL code, such as a query, a select statement, is passed to the database? The first thing that happens is that SQL code statement is parsed. What do we mean by parsed? Parsing is a term used in computer jargon to imply syntax checking, such as in a language, any kind of language, English, Japanese, Martian, whatever you like, PLSQL, SQL code. All it does is it checks the syntax of the language. Is an if statement, for instance, formatted properly? Is a select statement formatted properly? Are the where clause and the order clause the right way around? That's what we mean by parsing. It's effectively syntax checking. The other thing that happens with Oracle is that a pre-parsed SQL code statement can be stored in the shared pool. In other words, when it executes or when it's parsed, its parsed version is stored in the shared pool for later reuse. In other words, highly shared SQL statements, shared by many concurrent users at once, can be retrieved from the shared pool at a later date, avoiding reparsing. Avoiding reparsing helps performance, obviously. It's an extra step which can be avoided. The same applies to optimization. Optimization is effectively creation of an execution plan. A plan is a thing that Oracle builds that tells the database what the database might want to do to execute this SQL code statement. In other words, go and get this table, read this index to read this row in this table, or go and execute a full index scan or a full table scan to read the data, because the optimizer considers whatever method it has selected as potentially the most efficient. Bear in mind that the optimizer is only creating a proposed plan. The actual execution plan may actually be somewhat different to what the optimizer assesses. Actual execution plans for SQL statements can be found by accessing the vSQL plan view, v$SQL plan. The execution process occurs after parsing and optimization. Parsing checks syntax and generally builds the SQL code statement. Optimization assesses the best method for executing it, and obviously the execution process actually executes the SQL code statement, passing it to the database engine, requesting execution, and when the execution is complete, getting a result back, the return of results. So basically, the execution process is a process of parsing, optimization, execution, and return of results.